Here, on the easternmost tip of Africa, a peninsula of land juts out into the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean. It is a place of dramatic contrasts, a landscape sculpted by time itself. We call it the Horn of Africa: Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, Djibouti. This land is ancient, its story etched into the very rock and dust. Its jagged mountains reach for the heavens while its sun-scorched plains stretch to the horizon. The Great Rift Valley, a colossal scar upon the Earth's surface, runs through its heart. It is here, in this remarkable cradle of life, that some of the earliest chapters of the human story began to unfold millions of years ago. A story of survival, innovation, and endless movement. The geography of the Horn is a powerful force, dictating the rhythm of life for all its inhabitants. The mighty Blue Nile begins its epic journey in the Ethiopian highlands, carrying life-giving water and fertile silt northwards to Egypt. Our story travels back in time to an era shrouded in legend. Around 3,000 years ago, a remarkable civilization began to stir in the northern highlands of modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. This was the land of Damt, a kingdom whose name still whispers on the wind, but it is clear that it laid the foundations for what was to come, a truly magnificent African empire. From the ashes of Damt, a new power emerged around the 1st century AD. This was the Kingdom of Aksum. It grew to become one of the 4 great powers of the ancient world: Rome, Persia, China. The Aksumites were masters of trade and engineering: gold, ivory, frankincense. The kingdom's wealth was immense, and its rulers minted their own gold coins. The most breathtaking legacy of Aksum is its incredible architecture. Around the 4th century, King Ezana converted to Christianity, shaping the region's destiny. Yet, like all great empires, Aksum's golden age eventually came to an end, its decline beginning around the 7th century. Its cultural and religious legacy continued, echoing into the present. As the influence of Aksum retreated to the highlands, new forces began to shape the coastal areas and the vast interior of the Horn. The spread of Islam, beginning in the 7th century, was a transformative event. Carried by merchants and missionaries across the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, the new faith found fertile ground among the Somali and Afar peoples of the coast. A string of powerful and wealthy city-states emerged along the Somali seaboard: Mogadishu, Merka, Zayla. They became vibrant centers of commerce, culture, and Islamic scholarship. Their ports bustled with dhows from Arabia, Persia, and even China. These coastal sultanates formed a vital link in a sprawling maritime trade network: gold, ivory, hides, frankincense. In return, they imported silk, porcelain, spices, and metals. Architectural styles and religious practices blended, creating a unique coastal culture. Languages mingled, producing a Swahili Arab-African tapestry along the coast. Meanwhile, in the Christian highlands, the Zagwe dynasty carved a holy city, Lalibela. 11 churches were excavated downward from solid rock to serve as a new Jerusalem for those who could not reach the Holy Land. This period was not always peaceful. Rivalry and competition for trade and territory led to conflict. Yet alongside clashes like the 16th century Ethiopian Adal War, there were also long periods of coexistence and exchange. For centuries, the Horn charted its own course, until the late 19th century, when a new force arrived from beyond the horizon: Britain, France, Italy. This was the scramble for Africa, and the Horn's control of the Red Sea entrance made it a prize. The newly opened Suez Canal magnified its strategic value. European powers used treaties, misunderstanding, and military force to claim territory. New borders were drawn in distant capitals, dividing peoples who had lived together for generations. France seized a small, vital coastal piece, Djibouti, to coal and service its ships. Britain established protectorates over the northern Somali coast. Italy colonized the southern Somali coast and parts of Eritrea. One kingdom resisted fiercely. Ethiopia, under Menelik II, rallied a determined army. At Adwa in 1896, Ethiopian forces inflicted a decisive defeat on Italy, a landmark of African resistance. Colonial powers built ports and railways, primarily to extract resources and serve distant capitals. Those artificial borders planted seeds of future conflict. Yet the colonial era was relatively brief compared with the region's long history. Its legacies, borders, administration, and new languages would deeply shape the future. The experience of colonialism altered the social and political landscape, setting the stage for independence and new struggles. The mid-20th century brought a wave of change across Africa. In the Horn, the winds of independence swept away old empires. After decades under Italian and British administration, Somalia gained independence in 1960. The former territories united into a single new nation amid optimism. A dream of a greater Somalia, uniting all Somali-speaking peoples, sparked nationalist fervor. But that ambition seeded regional tensions and future conflict. Ethiopia itself faced internal upheaval when Emperor Haile Selassie was overthrown in 1974. The Derg, a Marxist-Leninist junta backed by the Soviet Union, transformed the country. Its rule was marked by the Red Terror and devastating famines that claimed countless lives. At the same time, Ethiopia fought a long war with Somalia over the Ogaden region. Eritrea had been federated with Ethiopia in 1952. Many Eritreans felt their identity was being eroded. In 1961, a 30-year guerrilla war began as Eritreans fought for self-determination. The Derg fell in 1991, and Eritrean fighters entered Asmara in triumph. Eritrea formally gained independence in 1993, beginning a long process of rebuilding. The end of the Cold War and independence brought hope. But the legacies of colonial borders, proxy wars, and internal conflict made nation-building difficult. The initial joy of freedom gave way to the hard reality of rebuilding. The hopes of the early 1990s were soon confronted by harsh new realities. In Somalia, the state collapsed entirely in 1991. The country descended into civil war as rival warlords and clans fought for control. Mogadishu became a symbol of anarchy and collapse. The power vacuum created a breeding ground for extremism, including al-Shabaab. Millions were displaced, and a generation grew up knowing little but war. Tensions between Eritrea and Ethiopia escalated, erupting into war over Badme in 1998. The war cost tens of thousands of lives. A 2000 agreement ended active fighting but left scars. Compounding the man-made disasters is the relentless pressure of climate change. The Horn is highly vulnerable to extreme weather. Recurrent droughts destroy harvests and decimate livestock, the primary wealth of pastoralists. These shocks trigger famines and push millions to the brink of starvation. People walk for days seeking food and water. Resources become flashpoints for conflict. Resource scarcity intensifies conflict, creating a vicious cycle of displacement. Yet communities draw on centuries of coping strategies. Resilience born of necessity. International aid and local activists work to alleviate suffering and build peace from the ground up. Communities share what little they have, rebuild homes, reopen schools, refusing to surrender hope. It is this refusal to surrender that offers the most profound lesson from this troubled land. Today, on August 22, 2025, the Horn stands at another critical crossroads. The narrative of conflict and crisis is beginning to show signs of a new chapter. A landmark development was the 2018 peace agreement between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Borders reopened, diplomatic ties were restored, a thaw with huge regional potential. This thaw can unlock cooperation, trade, and shared development across the Horn. Djibouti leverages its ports, investment and joint projects are growing. In Somalia, a fragile federal government is slowly rebuilding institutions and services. Ethiopia has a young, dynamic population and ambitious plans for industrialization. Challenges remain. Political instability, ethnic tensions, and climate threats will test leaders and communities. Building lasting peace requires reconciliation, justice, inclusive politics, and opportunity for youth. Tackling poverty and creating employment for a young population is the central task ahead. The story is being written daily in markets, ports, and rebuilding neighborhoods across the region. The future is unwritten, a balance between a heavy past and the promise of a brighter dawn. For the first time in a long time, there is a tangible sense of hope. The world watches with anticipation.